So for those of you that don't know, Charles Lewis was the co-founder of TapouT, who was killed this year in a car accident. And this is a guy who, you know, why are we putting Charles Lewis in the UFC Hall of Fame? When Lorenzo and I first met him back in 2001 when we bought the UFC, this is a guy who, you know, had just this aura about him and this persona. This is a guy that, I don't care when you met him, what happened in his life that day, what was going on in the world, this guy was never in a bad mood. He was never a downer, he was never bummed out. He was always upbeat and positive about everything. And he was a big part of helping us, you know, attack a lot of grassroots marketing and getting the UFC out there. TapouT was an established brand with the hardcore fans when we bought the UFC. And in every shipment they would send out, they'd be putting UFC flyers in there. I mean, anything Charles Lewis and Dan and Scrape and the guys from TapouT could do to help grow the sport or improve things, he did. He was an amazing human being, loved life, loved this sport, and basically, you know, like many of us, and there's lots of people in this room who are exhibitors here or fans who absolutely 100% dedicated his life to this sport when it looked like there was never going to be any money in this sport. You know, it's easy to say, yeah, I want to get into mixed martial arts now. It's a booming, thriving, multi-billion-dollar business. Back then, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. It didn't look like anybody was ever going to make $1 in the sport. But there was a group of people that existed that believed in this thing to the end. I mean, they were willing to dedicate their life to it and get up every day and work hard to help grow this sport. And this is a guy who, you know, at a time when there really was no money in this sport, was spending money he didn't have to sponsor fighters. You know, pretty much everybody you saw in the old days, you know, wore either TapouT or a couple other, you know, small clothing companies that existed then. So you want to talk about risk takers, innovators, guys who have a vision and guys who believe in something where they're willing to risk everything to do it. Charles Lewis and the guys from TapouT are just like us. They were here before us, okay? Chuck Liddell is a little emotional right now because he and Charles were really, I think it was Chuck's first sponsor was TapouT, and he and Charles were really close, very, very close friends, and I thought it was cool to induct them both into the Hall of Fame at the same time. So I'm going to bring out the guys from TapouT to accept Charles Lewis induction into the UFC Hall of Fame.